Permission to come aboard.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
And here we go.
This is Brad Bell with GeeksWorldwide.com. I'm representing our site at HeroesCon 2016. We have a very special interview that we're going to conduct today, pre-HeroesCon, because I was lucky enough to reach out to one of the legends in the comic book industry, Mr. Neal Adams, to talk about what he has going on this year at HeroesCon 2016 in Charlotte, North Carolina. Neal, how are you doing this afternoon, my friend?
Well, you forgot to mention that it's going to be this weekend.
It is this weekend. That's right, Father's Day weekend.
And whoever's going to be there is going to come over to my booth and say hi.
Absolutely. You always have one of the longest lines, Neal.
We have a big booth, and we have lots of stuff there, and we're buddies with just about everybody there. So if you really just need to get directions, you just come on over and we'll tell you where everybody is.
And one thing I really like about HeroesCon, Neal, unlike some of the bigger conventions throughout the United States, it really is a chance for fans to get to know and talk for a few minutes with their favorite writers and artists in the industries. Do you enjoy that part about the convention?
Well, I do, and I suppose we're kind of alluding to the Wizard Con. Very media oriented and not artist and writer oriented. Some cons try to balance that, showbiz people and comic book people. So it makes it a little bit easier to get to see your favorite artist. But this convention is known for being basically what they call an artist convention. And if you're sick and tired of meeting people who make up on various shows, you can come on down and say hello to your favorite artist, because there's a list down there as long as your arm, would you say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Shelton and his guys have done a great job. That being Shelton Drum, who runs the con from Heroes Aren't Hard to Find in Charlotte. Great local comic book store in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. He's done a great job of really protecting this con. Not that there's anything wrong with the Wizard Cons or the San Diego Comic Cons, but this is a comic-driven, like you said, artist and writer-driven convention. You don't have to worry about 5 extras from Buffy the Vampire Slayer getting in the way of
or
the...
too many zombies. I mean, those zombies, I never know who they are.
And there's so many. There's zombie conventions now. You got things like Walker Stalker Con. That's really taken off.
Now, I wouldn't complain. To me, of those Walker Stalker Cons and stuff like that, there's a certain charm to those things. But if you're a comic book reader and you're a comic book fan and you like comic books today and you like the comic books of the Silver Age, and even if you're old enough to like the older comic books from the Golden Age, you're going to find people there, and you're going to find representation there of comic books and creators that are just the very best people in the business, because Shelton, as you said, he gathers in the best folks around, and it puts on a fantastic convention. You can sit there and talk to your heart's content to people that you only thought that you'd ever get to read their comic books. I mean, folks in comics are pretty friendly people, and they're easy to talk to, and they're easy to find out, like we're doing right now, what they're all about and what they've been doing lately.
We kind of live in this golden age of superheroes with all the films, with all the TV shows, but it's always important to go back to our roots and look where it all started, on the pages, and beautiful pages of artists like people such as Neal Adams. And Neal, first of all, just thank you so much. It's an honor to sit down. Well, we're not sitting down. I'm sitting down.
I am, and you are, and the dog isn't in your lap, but he was a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I had to drive my crazy beagle Penny out of here, but we got that taken care of. And thank you just for your time today, Mr. Adams. So I'm going to start off with a few questions here.
Sure.
Forgive me if you've heard some of these a million times, but I can't help myself. And I know you've been talking about this one perhaps a lot lately with the recent passing of Muhammad Ali. Looking back now at your work on the Superman versus Muhammad Ali comic, which is now legendary in and of itself. Not that you didn't have an appreciation for it before, but do you kind of have even more of an appreciation for that work since we've lost a living legend in Ali?
Well, that's the thing about that that's important for people to realize that is that Ali, although he struck a little controversy in our own country, he was a hero to the world. That comic book, that Superman versus Muhammad Ali, was popular in every free country in the world. They printed it in their language in every country in the world. There were millions of copies. When I travel to Europe or I go to England, I sign European versions of the Superman versus Muhammad Ali. They did it in Tokyo, in Japan. They did it in Italy. They did it in France. That book saw an audience around the world, and so we got to show not only Ali, who was really an American hero. I mean, some folks may not think so, but as time has gone by, we see that he stood for the right thing. And Superman, who is a fictional hero, together in one book with a pretty good story, if I do say so myself. And you could really enjoy the nature of the change in what was going on in America through this comic book. So it is not it doesn't just exist as a comic book. It exists as a cultural marker for its time. And so now that Ali is dead, we can look at it and say, yes, that was Muhammad Ali, and the best representation, except for some films, of what the kids were looking at in those days when he was around. Very important in some ways.
And absolutely a great parallel between Superman being the ultimate immigrant who has faced a ton of controversy and ridicule over the course of his history, talking about his fictional history, of course, not from the general public, and Ali, who we know the history he had with controversy in the general public. Is that your most signed book, Neal, when you go out to conventions, is the Superman Ali book?
Well, it's really according to who you're talking to. I mean, different people will come to my table and talk about many, many different things. They'll talk about Superman versus Muhammad Ali. We'll talk about John Stewart, who I created as a Green Lantern. And people missed in the Green Lantern movie. We had the first really black superhero who was a college-educated professional man becoming a superhero instead of some gangbanger who suddenly got a superpower and decided to be a good guy. They talk about how we took Green Arrow and made him from a copy of Batman to, in effect, a copy of Robin Hood, or a modern-day Robin Hood, and now he's become a television show in his own right. We call that television show the Neal Adams Show. Because they borrow so much from Denny O'Neil and myself on that show. Then we go to the X-Men, which basically I saved from cancellation back when I was doing those 10 issues that I did. And so the conversation, I have to tell you, go from Muhammad Ali to Atomic Mountain. There is so much that has filled my career, and so many different conversations, and as well as artists who want to show me their portfolio so that I can give them tips on how to try to get into the comic book business. That's the thing about artists at comic book conventions. It's not just the Johnny One Note. You don't go to see an actor and have him sign his photograph, take a picture with them, and that's it. You have folks that are real folks that are producing the culture of our society that is turning into movies, television, computer games, bed sheets on our beds. It's amazing what's going on, and that's what makes this convention so much better than your standard media convention.
It's just incredible when you look around society today. Just you can be out at a restaurant, out at a ball game, you can be at a university, and you're going to see a Batman or a Green Lantern shirt. Just how this geek culture has kind of transcended our own culture, and it's just
kind of taken over the world, hasn't it? I see that Superman breaking chains on his chest everywhere. I can see it in Walmart, Kmart. They have it printed on canvas. They have it printed on clothing. They have it on T-shirts. They have it everywhere, and people still love the image. That's another thing that happens with comic books. Is we create images for our modern society that then turn into, again, film and television. It's so good to be part of this, especially since when I started, everybody was trying to get rid of comic books. They weren't allowing comic books into their house. Congress had attacked comic books and said they were bad for kids and turned them into juvenile delinquents. The world has changed. The geeks have taken over.
Yeah, we won, Neil. We won. Can you believe it?
That's right. That's incredible. And you go to a convention and you see more than 20,000 people there, you kind of realize, yes, we have. And there are 100 conventions around the country every year these days, starting last year. Went from 70 to 100 conventions with over 20,000 people, and there's lots of little conventions everywhere. There are just so many of these conventions, and you have people that go there for the first time, are just becoming part of this phenomenon. So this is not a phenomenon that's anywhere near wearing off. There's more people being introduced to it every single day.
It's like our culture has had an awakening of our modern mythology, and that's what I really describe comics as. And it's like people discovering Zeus or Hercules or Medusa for the first time. You may have seen these characters, but when you actually sit down and read the Superman, the Batmans, the Wonder Womans, and you get to know what they stand for, it kind of changes. It can change society, like we've seen.
Well, that's in fact what's happening. I mean, Archie is probably the most popular comic book in India.
Wow.
You don't know that.
I didn't know that.
Comic books are getting into Russia. Comic books are getting into China. Comic books are hand of peace around the world, into Africa and South America. South America is just filled with people who are comic book fans. And so those people then become our brothers. Those are as close to us as the kid down the block. This is not if anybody wants to make one world out of this, we can do it through comic books, because comic books are a valid medium. People laugh about it, but they are words and pictures together to tell stories. And one of the things that I do say to people is this: if you put the best artist in the world together with the best writer in the world and they produce a book, that's got to be the best piece of literature in the world.
Correct.
Not just simply by the fact that that's how math works.
1 + 1's 2. I can add that up. And I had to go to summer school for math way back in high school, but even I can do that arithmetic.
That's right.
Now, you talked a little bit about Jon Stewart, creating really the first serious black superhero for DC. Right. Does that mean, not that it didn't mean a lot at the time, but seeing how many more minority characters we have, female characters, LGBT characters, just a very inclusive medium comics is, as we talked about. It can really pull society together. How does it feel looking back to kind of be a trailblazer on that?
I think it pulls the world together, and I think that's what we're looking for. Peace through comic books is a very strange thing to say, but the truth of the matter is that it becomes a medium that is understood by everybody in the world. You don't have to be sophisticated. You don't have a college degree. You do need to be able to read. And the funny thing is, most kids that read comic books read better than other kids, because they have to read those stories in order to understand them. And the big word, and there's nobody limiting the words that go into comic books. For example, one of the things I also say is, I never saw a kid with his own money buy a children's book, but they will with their own money buy a comic book. So to be part of that, for me, are you kidding? It's the greatest thing in the world. People call me a legend. They say, "Oh, Neal, you're a legend." I say, No, I'm a comic book artist and a writer. That's the thing I'm proud of, because we are reaching out to the world. I go on the internet just like everybody else does, and I have fans everywhere in the world, and they write to me. They talk about comic books. The thing that people don't quite understand is that any art form that is a great art form is never quite recognized in its time, because it's what everybody's doing. Well, this is what everybody's doing. The best movies that are out there are comic book movies. In fact, the most expensive movies are comic book movies. Then out of the next 5 movies you see, 3 of them will be comic book movies, and the 4th one, okay, you'll probably probably say, "Gee, that's not a comic book movie," and at the end you'll see a little logo that says based on the graphic novel by so and so and so and so.
Absolutely.
That's right. So that you cannot not look at the cultural quality, the nature of what comic books are doing. You have the Academy Awards out there not giving Academy Awards to comic book movies, and it just becomes a joke because that's exactly the way it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to recognize what's going on in society in your cultural forms because it's sneaking up on you and coming through the back door and just making everybody happy.
I still think The Dark Knight should have been Best Picture back in 2008, Neal.
I understand that, but you have to understand the prejudice that stopped it from doing that. And that's the nature of the beast. The nature of the beast is sort of like the French will say, that America created three art forms. They created jazz, musical comedy, and comic books. And my attitude is, I just prefer you didn't talk about it with you French guys because we don't want you to mess up comic books the way you messed up jazz.
Well,
because you guys are talking a little too much about art and a little too little about having a good time.
Well, they did bring us French fries, Neal, so we got to appreciate that, right? And you can have a lot of those as you walk on the show floor and visit Neal Adams this weekend at HeroesCon. Just make sure you get a napkin before you hand your book to Neal. No grease. Don't want any of that on our comics, but...
That's right. And by the way, I will have art there if any of you folks are collectors and are art collectors, because that's another thing that's happening in America. People are taking down their impressionist paintings that they never understood to begin with, putting up comic book pages and comic book art. Because friends will come over and have a half-hour conversation about that before they have dinner.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Neal, because I'm actually broadcasting. I have a little office here at my house, and my wife was gracious enough, which is one of the reasons I married her. Love you, honey. To give me this, not give me, but not be upset or nitpicky about having what some would have said one day, oh, this is just a bunch of cartoons.
Right.
When we started dating, as we got engaged, she took the time to take interest and pick up a few books. And then she asked me to start buying her Wonder Woman. So it's cool to see how this art form that we all love can appeal to so many different people who thought they would never have interest in any of this stuff.
I can tell you that this is my experience. My experience is that I watch culture. I study history a lot. I watch our culture, and I've watched us go from the impressionists into the super realists and the other stuff that people are hanging on their walls. And what's happened is basically it's come down to wall decorations. The stuff isn't understood necessarily or cared about by most folks, and the impressionists seem to be kind of like people who started painting by taking their glasses off and looking through eyes that weren't quite so good, so they're a little fuzzy and out of focus. In comic books, as people put comic books up and comic book work up, or a page from a Batman story or whatever it is, their friends, unlike in the past, are comic book fans as well. And so when they come in the door and they see a piece of art and it's signed by an artist that they recognize, that is a good half-hour conversation, if not more. That may be the conversation for the evening. You're talking about art, and you're talking about modern art, and modern art today is comic book related. Maybe paintings, it may be illustrations or line drawings or whatever. It is the art of today, and there's more to say about it. There's more to talk about it. There's more invasion of other cultural aspects like movies and television, and it gives you things to talk about. And suddenly, it's not a wall decoration anymore. It's the art that you put in your home.
Yeah, I was lucky enough in fact, at HeroesCon 2 or 3 years ago, Kevin Eastman was there, one of the creators of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and he did a piece for me, and that piece is framed on my wall, and that starts a lot more conversations than our generic picture of the beach in our dining room. I can tell you that.
Exactly. My son, Joel, who was going to be at the convention, was one of the original designers of the King of the Hill TV show. He designed the characters.
Mike Judge.
For King of the Hill, right? Exactly. No, not Mike Judge, but the guy who worked on the TV show and designed the various characters that came up for the first 3 years. He shared an Emmy for that. And he goes to conventions, and you get to see his artwork there. For people who've seen King of the Hill, that's quite a thing.
Yeah, everybody's seen King of the Hill, whether it's on a T-shirt, whether it's on a bumper sticker, or just on the ad online or on Cartoon Network and syndication.
Exactly.
That must make you a proud papa, Neal.
Oh, listen, I haven't won an Emmy. The heck with him, darn it.
You've won plenty of awards in your own industry, though. There's one thing I've always wanted to ask you, Neal.
Sure.
I think you've done a great job by bringing in characters like the Man-Bat and Ra's al Ghul of kind of way back in 1973 or the early 1970s of modernizing Batman, making him a little edgier. And I don't mean this in any way to be facetious or negative toward another legend, Frank Miller. But to me, you had just as great of an impact as he did, as far as something like The Dark Knight Returns, with your work in modernizing Batman into what we know and love about the character today. Does it ever irk you that...
No. You must understand that Frank Miller, who is practically a son of mine, did a Batman that was older. And he did this super, uniform on him that made him not as powerful as Superman, but able to defeat Superman. So his costume was designed for a 65-year-old man. So he was heavy and bulky, and he was that kind of a character. Frank was not trying to compete with the Batman that I did. He was saying, well, what happens, 20 years later when Batman is getting to be an old man, and not able to get around quite so good, and how does he deal with Superman? So he did that as an evolutionary process. He didn't try to do, today's Batman. He did try to do a 29-year-old Batman. He tried to do a 65-year-old Batman. So he made that contribution. And between that and between what I do, I think we have a pretty good cross-section of what Batman is younger and what Batman gets to be when he gets older. And we've experimented that with other artists. Everybody makes a contribution. If the contribution isn't a good one, people reject it. If it's a good contribution, people accept it, and they deal with it. I don't feel made less. I mean, the Batman that we see in what everybody does today is my Batman, pretty much. If you're going to do a 65-year-old Batman, it'll be Frank's Batman. That's no problem. Or if you have to put that bulky armor on him, like what happened in the movie, that's Frank's bulky armor. But there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's terrific.
Yeah.
And, I don't mind sharing. It's fine.
Yeah, there's very, very humble of you, Neal. But honest, a good, honest, and truthful answer. You are one of the pillars of what kind of shifted the age, because we all, you had your golden age, you had your silver age, and then you kind of had this modern, postmodern era of comics.
I'm still drawing comic books. You mustn't forget. We're about to come out with the 6th issue of the Superman series that I'm doing.
Reign of the Superman, correct?
Yes, that's right. And it's pretty exciting. It's pretty Jack Kirby. Got a lot of Jack Kirby in there.
And I'm sure you will be glad to sign a lot of copies of that at the convention.
That's right. No, I'm getting more and more as the conventions are going on, as books are coming out, because people are recognizing that and looking at Superman even a little differently. He's got a little bit more, muscle. He's got a little bit more maturity. He's got a little bit more fun in these comic books. And I'm thinking, well, maybe we got a handsomer, better looking Superman now. Maybe he's going to start looking better in the other comic books as well. I'm actually doing kind of a satire of the Superman versus Muhammad Ali with Harlequin and Superman as a special issue for DC, and that's kind of fun. And we're having a good time with that. Next, I'm going to be working on Commandy. You know about Commandy as a Jack Kirby character? Didn't get too much attention, but I think it's going to get some attention now. And then maybe I'll be doing Deadman.
Oh, wow. So you are teasing some upcoming projects at DC. I guess this would be after all the Rebirth stuff kicks in the full effect.
Well, we don't know what's going to happen to DC Comics. I think they're trying to find their way through. And while they're finding their way through, I'm doing 6 issues of Superman.
And that's served as a good transition. We've been fortunate enough to get a lot of review copies of at the site, And I'm telling you, they're really transitioning back to the spirit of what made these characters the first legendary superheroes of our American culture. So I've been enjoying it thus far.
That's great. That's great. Well, I hope everybody has, and I hope everybody comes down to the convention, comes by and say hi to you, because I'd like to meet some folks.
Absolutely. I look forward to coming by and just shaking hands and seeing the man in person at the convention. And I really appreciate you taking the time today, Neal. I want to ask you something real quick. You've been to Charlotte before, I know. What's your impressions of the city, and do you have a favorite dining spot? Because if not, I got a recommendation for you.
Well, why don't you come by all right, tell me what the recommendation is.
Okay, this goes for any of our listeners that are ever in Charlotte, in the surrounding metropolitan area. Pinky's Drive-In and Diner, right near the Carolina Panthers Stadium, not far from the convention center where HeroesCon takes place.
And what's it called again?
It's called Pinky's Drive-In and Diner.
Pinkey?
Exactly. And let me just say this, Neal.
Why is it called Pinky's?
Not Tinkies, Pinkies. As in Pinke.
Oh, Pinky.
Yeah.
Why is it called Pinky's?
I don't know. It's been around since the 1950s. I recently discovered it within the past few months. And let me just say this. They have corn-breaded fried shrimp. Fried shrimp, breaded in cornbread. Yes, I know.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. And I hope you really. It's a beautiful city. I'm fortunate enough to call it home, which is why I get to be the correspondent for our site. And I look forward to the convention, Neal. I look forward to you being there. Is there anything?
Check out Pinky's.
Absolutely, you got to check out Pinky's on my recommendation. All right, Neal. Thank you for your time today. I just want to tell our listeners I will be at HeroesCon as well, just like Neal. If you find me, the real Brad Bell, you will get a free digital comic code. So come and find me. Say, hey, let's talk about the podcast, the Capes podcast. You can find me on Twitter at the real Brad Bell. Neal, do you have a Twitter you want to put out there? Do you use the Twitters?
Just come and visit us at our site and our store, nealadams.com. You can remember Neal Adams. All you have to remember is .com after that. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Neal. And from the Hollywood foothills of North Carolina, with a living legend, Mr. Neal Adams, we are out.
That's all I have to say about that.
This has been a production of the GWW Radio Network. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Also, check out Geeks Worldwide at thegww.com for all the latest news, reviews, and opinions on video games, comics, movies, TV, cosplay, and more. Geeks, assemble!